It all starts with the ending no one really wants to talk about because, frankly, it's too weird. In Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, we see Kang the Conqueror facing what looks like his absolute defeat. Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne push him toward the collapsing core of his multiversal engine, and he's swallowed by that swirling, energy-consuming maelstrom. To the casual viewer, this looked like a clean kill. He's gone. Erased. Another villain who burned bright for a movie and fizzled out. But here's where things get tricky. Marvel rarely lets a major chess piece disappear without a purpose. And Kang isn't just any chess piece. He's the entire game board. Think about it. Marvel spent an entire Loki season setting up the concept of Kang variants, an entire Quantumania plot to frame this one as the exiled conqueror who even the Council of Kangs feared, and now what? He just gets sucked into a machine and dies. That's like throwing the king off the board in the middle of a chess match when you still have half the moves left to play. It doesn't add up. And it's in that inconsistency that a theory starts to grow, one that takes us from the quantum realm to the far corners of Marvel's upcoming Avengers saga and even into the shadowy hands of a certain Latverian monarch. When Scott and Hope watch Kang vanish into that imploding core, the movie frames it as a win. But let's remember, Kang's entire life's work is built around mastering time, space, and every dimension in between. The man has fought civilizations across centuries. He's escaped prisons designed by gods. The idea that he couldn't predict or manipulate the collapse of his own multiversal core feels, let's say, suspicious. The real question isn't did Kang survive, it's where did he go? Now here's the fun part. The quantum realm isn't just a tiny subatomic space. In Marvel lore, it's a kind of crossroads. You can slip between timelines, universes, even realities from there, if you know how. And Kang? He's the guy who literally built a ship to do exactly that. So what if that swirling, destructive implosion wasn't him being destroyed, but rather him being transported? What if it launched him into a hidden layer of the quantum realm? One so buried in folds of reality that even the Council of Kangs doesn't know it exists. A blind spot in the multiverse, the perfect place for an exiled conqueror to bide his time, lick his wounds, and most importantly, wait. Now fast forward in our theory timeline. Let's talk about Avengers Doomsday. We already know the name Dr. Doom is practically dripping with inevitability when it comes to the next big villain after Kang. Doom isn't just another power-hungry scientist, he's a strategist, a magician, a ruler, and in some ways, a mirror of Kang himself. Both are obsessed with control. Both see themselves not as villains, but as saviors. And here's where it gets really interesting. In the comics, Kang and Doom have a history of reluctant alliances. They don't like each other, they respect each other. And in a twisted way, that's far more dangerous than friendship. Because when Doom needs something, he's willing to make deals with devils. And Kang? Kang is the kind of devil who can deliver what Doom wants most: dominion over all realities. Imagine Doom, somewhere after Avengers Doomsday, realizing that the multiverse is fracturing beyond even his capacity to manipulate. Maybe incursions are tearing realities apart. Maybe the Council of Kangs is collapsing into civil war. Maybe the Beyonder, yes, the one from Secret Wars lore, is looming over the cosmic chessboard. And Doom, for all his brilliance, sees that there's one tactician, one warrior, one conqueror who could turn the tide in his favor. The very Kang who vanished in the depths of the quantum realm. Doom doesn't need a Kang, he needs that Kang. The one who defied his own council. The one who dared to take the multiverse's future into his own hands. The one who almost won against the Avengers without ever setting foot outside his subatomic prison. So how would Doom do it? Well, here's the thing. Doom isn't just a man of science. He's also a sorcerer on par with Doctor Strange, and in the comics, he's used mystical pathways to reach places science can't. If Kang is in a hidden plain sight layer of the quantum realm, one so knotted into the folds of space-time that even Pym particles can't chart it, Doom could combine magic and technology to rip it open. Picture it. Doom, stepping into a shimmering rift, his armor reflecting the collapsing lights of the dimensional tear, pulling Kang out of that timeless limbo. And when Kang opens his eyes, instead of chains, he finds an outstretched hand. From there, the possibilities get both exciting and terrifying. Because Kang and Doom together are a whole different threat than either alone. In the comics, we've seen versions of this team-up. In Avengers, the Kang Dynasty arc from the early 2000s, Kang manipulates events on a scale that destabilizes the planet, while Doom maneuvers from the shadows, capitalizing on the chaos. In Avengers Forever, Kang's temporal manipulations create ripples that Doom exploits for his own schemes. And in some alternate reality stories, the two even share the stage as co-conquerors, briefly, before inevitably betraying one another. The key thing is, they work best when their goals overlap, even if only for a moment. And that's the scary part about a Kang-Doom alliance in the MCU. It wouldn't last long, but it wouldn't need to. Doom could use Kang to help him eliminate multiversal rivals, maybe even take out other Kang variants. Kang, in return, could use Doom's resources and magical insight to rebuild his multiversal engine, giving him the chance to retake his position as the ultimate Kang. They'd be the ultimate short-term power couple, brilliant, ruthless, and willing to sacrifice absolutely anything or anyone for the sake of their visions. Now let's go back to that hidden plain sight angle, because it's not just a cool phrase, it could be the linchpin of how Marvel surprises us. What if Kang, right now, is subtly influencing events from wherever he ended up? We tend to think of Kang as someone who needs his tech and his ships, but remember, his mind is his greatest weapon. What if he's projecting thoughts, nudging probabilities, subtly steering key figures without them realizing? Imagine scenes in upcoming MCU movies that don't make sense at first, alliances that form for no clear reason, sudden shifts in the tide of battle, only for us to learn later that Kang was whispering through the cracks of reality the whole time. That's the kind of reveal that could make even casual fans rewatch everything with a whole new lens. Doom finding Kang wouldn't just be a plot twist, it would be the MCU's way of escalating stakes without falling into the trap of another big bad just shows up. Instead, it would be a passing of the torch in a way, but also a merging of threats. Doom's cold calculated rule mixed with Kang's time-warping warfare would make the Avengers' worst day look like a picnic. And if Marvel wanted to go full comic book wildness, they could even borrow from arcs where Doom steals Kang's tech and creates his own hybrid persona. Imagine Doom with full mastery over time travel. The sheer narrative chaos would be unmatched. But here's the kicker. If Doom is smart, he'd never bring Kang back at full strength right away. He'd control the variables. Maybe Kang's body is restored, but his armor and engine are damaged. Maybe Doom keeps him in a carefully monitored space, feeding him just enough resources to be useful, but not enough to be dangerous. Of course, with Kang, that's never going to last. The man's entire existence is about outsmarting those who think they can contain him. And so, even as they work together, the clock would be ticking toward an inevitable betrayal. A betrayal so well-timed it could shatter the Avengers' plan in secret wars before it even starts. And let's not forget, the Council of Kangs wouldn't be blind to this. If they sense Doom's interference, if they realize that Kang is back in play, they might see him as an even bigger threat than the Avengers. And that sets up an absolutely insane possibility, a three-way war. Doom and Kang as one force, the Council of Kangs as another, and the Avengers caught in between. Think about the scale of that. Battles across multiple timelines, armies from divergent universes, reality itself breaking apart under the strain. It's the kind of cinematic spectacle that could make Endgame look like a rehearsal. If the Council of Kangs versus Doom and Kang sounds like overkill, that's exactly the point. Marvel's multiverse storyline almost demands something that feels overwhelming. The stakes have to be so colossal that the audience starts to wonder how the Avengers could possibly win. And that's where this theory really starts to tighten the screws, because Doom wouldn't just bring Kang back to be a sidekick. He'd bring him back as a precision weapon, one aimed squarely at the forces standing between Doom and ultimate control. Think about Doom's mind here. He's not the kind of villain who operates out of impulse. Everything he does is calculated 10 moves ahead. When he learns about the incursions, parallel universes crashing into each other, he doesn't just see disaster. He sees opportunity. If Kang can manipulate time and access countless realities, and Doom can manipulate power structures and bend mystical laws to his will, they can position themselves as the only ones capable of saving what's left of the multiverse. That's the key word, saving. Doom doesn't see himself as a destroyer. In his mind, he's the last best hope for order in a chaotic cosmos. But Kang? Kang is a conqueror. His motives aren't dressed up in the same self-righteous packaging as Doom's. He doesn't need to rule out of obligation. He rules because it's who he is. That tension, that ideological clash is what would make their alliance so compelling. They'd agree on the what, defeat the council, take the multiverse, but they'd clash constantly on the how. Doom would prefer surgical strikes and strategic manipulation. Kang would want to march an army through the timelines like a declaration of inevitability. Now, in Marvel Comics, we've seen shades of this dynamic before. One of the most notable instances was in the Books of Doom era, combined with Kang's appearances in Avengers Forever, where each man's arrogance forced them into reluctant cooperation. At one point, Kang even offered Doom the chance to share in dominion over conquered territory, something Kang almost never does. But even then, they were both playing the long game, knowing full well that the first opportunity for betrayal would be seized without hesitation. That's exactly how it would play in the MCU. This would be less of a buddy cop team-up and more of a Cold War alliance where both sides are armed to the teeth and waiting for the other to slip. Here's where the hidden plain sight part becomes even more intriguing. If Kang has been sitting in an unobservable layer of the quantum realm since Quantumania, Doom might not be the first to find him. Kang could have been observing everything, watching incursions unfold, watching new heroes rise, and more importantly, watching the Council's movements. From that vantage point, he could be storing intel Doom desperately needs. And Doom's genius isn't just about building machines, it's about using information like a scalpel. He could barter with Kang, convincing him that their goals align, all while extracting every drop of knowledge before deciding whether to actually honor the deal. Picture a scene where Kang reveals that there's a fracture point in the multiverse, a single nexus event that, if altered, could topple the Council of Kangs in one move. Doom's eyes would light up, not because of the act itself, but because of the control it would grant him. And in return, Doom might give Kang something he's been missing since his exile: access to his technology, armor, and a rebuilt version of his multiversal engine. Not the original, mind you. Doom would design it himself, ensuring it's laced with safeguards that keep Kang from simply flying off the board. At least, that's what Doom would think. The moment they start working together, the Avengers' problems multiply. Remember, Kang alone almost took down Ant-Man's entire team inside the quantum realm with limited resources. Doom alone can challenge the combined might of the Fantastic Four and the Avengers and often win. Together, they'd be rewriting the rules of engagement. They wouldn't just be attacking Earth. They'd be attacking the concept of victory itself, shifting timelines, deleting victories before they happen, reprogramming reality so that the Avengers never even meet in some universes. This isn't about throwing bigger armies at the heroes, it's about making sure those armies already won before the battle even begins. And that's the terrifying brilliance of it. The Avengers wouldn't be fighting one war, they'd be fighting hundreds, all at once, across different realities, with versions of themselves dying in battles they didn't even know existed. That's the kind of threat Marvel needs to make Secret Wars feel bigger than Endgame. It's not just spectacle, it's existential horror dressed in superhero skin. Now let's talk about why Doom would bring Kang back after Avengers Doomsday. If Doomsday is Doom's grand reveal, it's possible he enters the story already having dealt the Avengers a crushing blow. But by the end of that film, he might realize that the Council of Kangs is a far bigger player than he anticipated. Maybe Doomsday ends with Doom narrowly escaping an encounter with the Council, realizing he needs a partner who understands them from the inside. This is where the chess move becomes apparent. Doom doesn't want just any Kang, he wants the exiled one, the one the Council feared so much they banished him. That means freeing him isn't just a recruitment, it's a weaponized insult to the Council. And here's a small but delicious detail from the comics. Doom has never been above playing with temporal paradoxes. In one storyline, he used a time platform to bring versions of himself and others from different points in their timelines to serve his purposes. Imagine Doom doing the same here, not just rescuing Kang, but plucking him out at the exact moment before his death in Quantumania, effectively stealing him from the jaws of his own fate. That kind of move would enrage the Council and immediately set the stage for a multiversal arms race. What's even more fun to imagine is how the Avengers would react to a Doom-Kang alliance. For heroes like Sam Wilson's Captain America or Peter Parker's Spider-Man, this isn't just a stronger enemy, it's an enemy that breaks the rules they thought they understood. How do you strategize against someone who can undo the very history you're relying on? How do you protect a world that could be erased from existence before you can even step onto the battlefield? If Marvel wanted to make things even more chaotic, they could hint at Doom and Kang working together long before it's confirmed on screen. Small, unexplainable victories for the villains. Hero plans going sideways for no apparent reason. Allies who suddenly turn out to be enemies, only for us to later learn that Kang and Doom have been running overlapping manipulations for months. That slow burn reveal would make the eventual confirmation hit like a truck. Let's also address the inevitable betrayal, because with Kang and Doom, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. From Kang's perspective, Doom's vision of order is far too limited. Doom wants to rule one multiverse, Kang wants to rule all of them. From Doom's perspective, Kang is too reckless, too willing to burn down the house just to prove he owns it. They'd start as uneasy allies, but the more ground they take together, the more each one starts plotting to take it all for themselves. And here's the delicious twist, they'd each plan for the betrayal from the start. Every deal, every shared piece of intel, every cooperative victory would be a double-edged sword, designed to turn into a weapon when the knife finally comes out. From a storytelling perspective, this is gold. Marvel gets to give us the spectacle of two supervillains at the height of their powers, without ever losing the tension that one could strike at the other at any moment. And when that betrayal finally happens, it could be the exact crack in their armor the Avengers need to mount a comeback in Secret Wars. Imagine Doom standing over a defeated Kang, thinking he's finally claimed the multiverse, only for the Avengers to use the chaos to turn the tide. Or flip it, Kang outsmarts Doom, takes his magic-infused tech and becomes something far worse than either of them was alone. Either path works, but the beauty is in the build-up. The audience gets to watch two titans play the longest, most dangerous game of chess in MCU history, all while the multiverse itself crumbles around them. That's not just a climax. That's the kind of saga people talk about for years. And it all begins with that moment in Quantumania when Kang vanishes. the moment everyone thought was his end. In reality, it could be the most important seed Marvel planted for the future, a seed that grows into an alliance so dangerous, so unthinkable, that even the Council of Kangs would shudder at the thought. Kang in hidden plain sight. Doom with a plan only he understands. And the Avengers, standing in the middle of a war they can't even see coming. If we follow this chain of logic into Secret Wars, the scale of the Kang-Doom alliance starts to reveal just how much narrative muscle Marvel could flex. Up to this point in the MCU, every major threat has been centralized. Thanos with the Infinity Stones, Ultron with his AI army, Loki with the Chitauri. But here, the danger isn't just the bad guys have a super weapon. The danger is that the entire battlefield is under their control. Doom and Kang wouldn't need to fight the Avengers head-on. They'd be pulling levers behind the scenes, tipping the balance in every confrontation before the first punch is thrown. Imagine a war where the Avengers land in what they think is their home universe, only to realize subtle things are wrong. Alliances are inverted. Key allies never existed. The Sokovia Accords are still law in this reality, and half the team is branded criminals. In another timeline, Tony Stark is alive but working for Doom's cause. In yet another, the Avengers themselves are the ones trying to stop a version of themselves from destroying reality, because Kang and Doom manipulated that timeline's events to make the heroes the villains. That's the genius of this partnership. They're not fighting battles. They're rewriting the rules of reality itself to create a playing field only they can win on. But this isn't just about power. It's about philosophy. Doom, for all his tyranny, operates under a warped sense of responsibility. He truly believes the multiverse would be better under his singular rule. His reasoning is cold. Left unchecked, infinite timelines lead to infinite chaos. Someone has to make the hard calls, and who better than the man smart enough to do it? Kang, by contrast, doesn't care about stability. He thrives in conquest. In some ways, he loves chaos because it creates the conditions for him to rise again and again. This philosophical divide would create small cracks in their alliance long before the outright betrayal happens. Marvel could plant these cracks through conversations the heroes overhear, or even brief scenes between Kang and Doom where one challenges the other's vision. Doom might accuse Kang of wasting resources on unnecessary wars. Kang might accuse Doom of being too cautious, too slow to seize opportunities. To the outside observer, these disagreements would look like strategy debates. But to us, the audience, they'd be foreshadowing the moment one makes the first move to remove the other from the board. And speaking of boards, let's talk about the Council of Kangs. If they catch wind of this alliance, they would have to act. The Council's power lies in its collective unity. An infinite network of Kangs working together to control the multiverse. A rogue Kang allied with an outsider as dangerous as Doom threatens that unity. But here's where it gets interesting. The Council's arrogance could be their downfall. They might assume Doom is merely Kang's pawn, underestimating his ability to manipulate events. They might send a task force of Kangs to eliminate their rogue counterpart, only to find themselves picked off one by a combination of Doom's sorcery and Kang's temporal weaponry. This opens the door for one of the most visually stunning possibilities in Secret Wars. A full-scale battle where the Council of Kangs deploys countless versions of themselves. Egyptian Pharaoh Kang, Armored General Kang, even the Immortus-style Elder Kang against Doom and his forces with the Avengers caught in the crossfire. The sheer absurdity of an army of Kangs, each with different technologies and tactics, would be unlike anything we've seen in the MCU. And Doom, standing at Kang's side, would use that chaos to advance his own hidden objectives. Maybe securing the Beyonder's power. Maybe claiming a central multiversal nexus for himself. And that brings us to the Beyonder. a figure who could easily serve as the final catalyst for Doom and Kang's inevitable falling out. In the original Secret Wars comic, the Beyonder is the one who creates the battle world, pulling heroes and villains from across the multiverse into one patchwork planet. If Marvel adapts this idea, the Beyonder's arrival would instantly change the balance of power. For Kang, the Beyonder is a challenge to be overcome, another conqueror to dethrone. For Doom, the Beyonder is an opportunity to steal godlike power and cement his rule. Their priorities would shift and trust, what little they had, would evaporate. From a narrative standpoint, this is where Marvel could orchestrate the perfect three-act betrayal. Act 1, the uneasy alliance, built on mutual need. Act 2, growing tensions as philosophical differences create friction. Act 3, a decisive moment where one sees a path to ultimate power and turns on the other. And the beauty of it is, either one could be the betrayer. Doom could blindside Kang, absorbing his tech and leaving him stranded in a broken timeline. Or Kang could see the Beyonder's power as the ultimate conquest, outmaneuver Doom, and erase him from existence before he has a chance to react. In either case, the betrayal would create just enough instability for the Avengers to mount a final push. But even here, Marvel could keep the tension high. Imagine the Avengers realizing that in order to stop the Beyonder, they might have to work with the one who survives the betrayal. That means making an impossible choice. Do you trust Doom, the tyrant who believes in his own infallibility, or Kang, the Conqueror who thrives in endless war? Either choice would come with massive consequences, and whichever they choose could influence the ending of Secret Wars. Here's another fascinating angle. What if Doom's plan all along was to bring Kang back just to study him? In the comics, Doom is relentless in his pursuit of understanding any force that could threaten his rule. He's cloned gods, stolen the powers of the Silver Surfer, and outsmarted cosmic beings. In this scenario, Doom might revive Kang, allow him to operate at partial strength, and use their alliance as a way to learn every weakness in Kang's arsenal. Then when the moment is right, he takes Kang's temporal technology for himself, effectively becoming a Doom beyond time, a version of himself capable of erasing threats before they're born. This version of Doom would be terrifying because he wouldn't need armies, he'd simply rewrite reality so that his enemies never existed in the first place. And yet even this Doom wouldn't be safe. Kang's whole existence is about surviving the impossible, outmaneuvering those who think they have him cornered. Maybe Kang lets Doom think he's in control, all the while laying the groundwork for a counterstrike. Perhaps Kang hides fragments of his technology in different points in time, so that when Doom inevitably betrays him, those fragments activate, restoring Kang's full power. The moment Doom thinks he's won, Kang emerges not as the beaten foe, but as something far worse, a version who's learned Doom's magic and combined it with his own mastery of time. The ripple effects of this alliance and its collapse would extend far beyond the central conflict. Side characters and subplots could be deeply affected. Maybe Loki, having dealt with Kang before, recognizes the danger early and tries to warn the Avengers. Maybe Wanda, if she returns, senses the multiverse's fabric straining under the combined weight of Kang and Doom's manipulations. Maybe even characters like Deadpool, set to debut in the MCU's multiversal chaos, find themselves stumbling into realities altered by the Alliance's schemes. These smaller perspectives could help ground the epic scale, showing the human cost of gods and conquerors playing chess with existence. And let's not forget the psychological impact on the Avengers themselves. By the time they face the combined might of Kang and Doom, they'll have endured years of losses, betrayals, and impossible choices. Fighting enemies who can rewrite the past means every victory could be undone, every sacrifice made meaningless. For characters like Doctor Strange, who already carry the weight of knowing what one possible future means, this would be an especially heavy burden. For newer heroes like Kamala Khan or Shang-Chi, it would be a brutal introduction to the stakes of multiversal warfare. Thematically, this arc could serve as a meditation on control. Who has the right to decide the fate of infinite lives? Doom would say, it's the one who can bear the responsibility without faltering. Kang would say it's the one strong enough to take it. The Avengers ideally would reject the premise entirely, believing no one should have that kind of power. And in the end, the battle wouldn't just be about defeating their enemies, it would be about restoring a multiverse where choice and chance, not tyranny, shape the future. But even if the Avengers win, the shadow of Kang and Doom's alliance would linger. In the comics, neither of these villains stays dead for long. If Doom survives, he might retreat to Latveria, plotting his next move. If Kang survives, he might vanish into the time stream, waiting for the next moment of weakness. And if both survive, well, then Marvel has just planted the seeds for another decade of storytelling. What makes this theory so potent is that it doesn't rely on fan service or random cameos. It's built on the established personalities, abilities, and histories of these two titans. Kang's exile in Quantumania becomes the spark, Doom's ambition becomes the fuel, and the multiverse itself becomes the battlefield. It's a story that could take the MCU to heights and depths it's never explored before. And all of it hangs on a single overlooked question. When Kang vanished in that swirling core, did he really lose? Or did he find the one place where he could wait, hidden in plain sight, for the perfect partner to come looking? By the time we reach the closing act of Secret Wars, the MCU would be in completely uncharted territory. The rules as we know them, the physics, the timelines, the alliances would be shattered. Heroes and villains alike would be pawns, willingly or not, in a cosmic power play between two of Marvel's most dangerous minds. And it's in this chaos that the final truth of Kang's disappearance in Quantumania would be revealed. We've been operating under the assumption that Kang was stranded, trapped in an unreachable fold of the quantum realm until Doom pried him free. But what if that wasn't the whole story? What if Kang, in the instant before his apparent defeat, chose to be swallowed by that core? In other words, what if it was a calculated retreat, not an accident, not a loss? Kang could have known that the multiverse's future events would force Doom to come for him. That Doom's ego, his hunger for control, would eventually drive him to seek out the one being who could give him an edge against the Council and other looming threats. Kang's disappearance wouldn't just be survival, it would be bait. That realization would change the game. Doom might think he's the one in control, the puppeteer behind the curtain, but in truth, Kang has been steering this alliance since before it even began. Every moment they've worked together, every victory they've won would suddenly be reframed as part of Kang's larger plan. In the comics, Kang is notorious for letting others believe they've outsmarted him, only to reveal that they've been moving along a path he designed all along. Imagine that on an MCU scale. Doom's moment of triumph crumbling as he realizes he's been the pawn in Kang's war. And yet, here's the beauty. Doom is not the kind of man to accept defeat quietly. The instant he realizes Kang has been playing him, his focus would shift from multiversal conquest to vengeance. This could lead to one of the most unpredictable final acts Marvel has ever staged. Kang and Doom, once united against the Avengers and the Council, would now turn their weapons on each other in a war so destructive it could collapse the battle world itself. For the Avengers, this shift would be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, their two greatest enemies are now tearing each other apart, which creates an opening. On the other hand, the collateral damage from such a clash could annihilate everything they're trying to save. The heroes would have to make a choice. let Kang and Doom destroy each other and risk the multiverse burning with them, or intervene in a way that stops both threats at once. This is where Marvel could pull off the ultimate team moment, bringing together heroes from across the multiverse, not just the core MCU timeline. We could see Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man fighting alongside Tom Holland. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine battling through an army of Kang variants. Variants of Captain America, Iron Man, Black Panther, and more uniting in one last stand. And at the center of it all, the choice. How do you stop two enemies who can rewrite time, space, and reality at will? The answer might not come from brute force at all. In the comics, Kang's greatest defeats often come from forcing him into paradoxes, traps where his own temporal logic works against him. Doom, on the other hand, is vulnerable to having his ego turned into a weapon. The Avengers could exploit this by playing them against each other in a way that makes each believe the other is moments away from ultimate victory. The trick would be timing. Push them just far enough to commit to destroying each other, but not so far that the entire multiverse collapses in the process. And here's where a final, shocking twist could land. What if neither of them truly dies? Marvel loves its long game, and keeping either Doom or Kang permanently out of play would be like throwing away a perfectly good chess piece. Instead, the Avengers' victory could involve sealing Kang and Doom in separate, isolated pockets of reality, prisons so specific to their weaknesses that escape seems impossible. For Kang, a dimension where time is fixed, immutable, unchangeable. For Doom, a world where he has no one to rule but himself. But even that wouldn't be a permanent solution. The final scenes could tease their inevitable return, a shadow moving in Kang's frozen dimension, Doom's eyes opening in his self-contained kingdom. The message would be clear. They're not gone. They're waiting. And next time, the heroes may not have the luxury of them turning on each other. From a thematic standpoint, ending the saga this way would tie back to the central question: can power ever be truly contained? The alliance between Kang and Doom would have been built on the idea that control is possible if you're smart enough, ruthless enough, or strong enough. The Avengers' victory would prove that control is an illusion, that no matter how many timelines you conquer or how many realms you rule, there will always be variables you can't account for. And yet, the lingering presence of Kang and Doom would serve as a reminder that those variables cut both ways. Heroes may win battles, but villains endure. Let's also consider how this arc could affect the MCU beyond Secret Wars. The fallout of a Kang-Doom alliance would ripple through every corner of the multiverse. Entire realities could be permanently altered. Heroes might return to find their worlds subtly different. Loved ones alive who were once dead. Allies missing who were once by their side. These changes could set up entirely new storylines for the next saga, whether that's an adaptation of Annihilation, Galactus, or something even more unexpected. In fact, one of the smartest moves Marvel could make would be to leave some of Kang and Doom's manipulations unresolved. Not every change needs to be undone by the end of Secret Wars. Maybe there's a timeline where a hero like Reed Richards never became Mr. Fantastic, and now that variant exists in the main MCU. Maybe there's a world where the X-Men have always been part of history, and that's how they get introduced post-Secret Wars. By leaving these scars on the multiverse, Marvel creates a playground for future stories that still feel connected to the Kang-Doom saga. It's also worth noting that in the comics, Kang's relationships, whether with Ravonna Renslayer, the Scarlet Centurion, or even temporary allies like Doom, tend to shape his evolution. The MCU could play with this by showing a Kang who, after this alliance, is more dangerous not because he has more power, but because he's learned from Doom's methods. Likewise, Doom could emerge from this having incorporated Kang's temporal perspective into his own strategies. The idea that they'd walk away from this unchanged would be untrue. They'd be even more formidable the next time we see them. In the end, though, the heart of this theory rests on the idea that Kang's defeat in Quantumania wasn't an ending. It was the opening move of a far longer game. That swirling core wasn't his grave. It was the doorway to the one plane that could ensure his survival, his resurgence, and his eventual dominance. Doom was never the rescuer. He was the mark. The Avengers were never the primary threat. They were the distraction. And the Council of Kangs? They were the challenge Kang needed an equal to help him face. When you step back and look at the pieces, it's a story that practically tells itself. The Conqueror and the Monarch. Time and magic. Strategy and ambition. Both convinced they're the one writing the rules. Both blind to how much they're being shaped by the other. It's the kind of dynamic that doesn't just fuel a single movie, it can define an entire saga. And as the dust settles on Secret Wars, whether Kang and Doom are gone, imprisoned, or simply waiting in the shadows, the message to the audience would be clear. In the Marvel Universe, the end is never the end. Every defeat is just another timeline waiting to be rewritten. Every alliance is just another move in a game without a final checkmate. So where did Kang go in the Quantumania climax? He didn't go anywhere that mattered, because the real destination was always here, at the heart of the multiverse, standing beside, and eventually against, the only man in existence who could match him move for move. And when Doom came looking, thinking he'd found a weapon, he'd unknowingly set in motion the one thing he could never control. A Kang with nothing left to lose.